Hello and welcome to my guide to the races in Skyrim. In this guide I will talk about the different advantages and disadvantages that the races in Skyrim have. So firstly let's look at Wood Elves. Wood Elves resist poison 50% and resist disease 50% and can command an animal once a day for 60 seconds. Now the resist poison and resist disease are interesting traits, but the command animal is not, an animal isn't always there for you to take advantage of in every single fight, so it's not really something you can rely on, and then you just start forgetting about it and not worry about it. So I don't think it's a very good trait as a race. But the resist poison and resist disease, I have not really ever had any problems with poisons or diseases, because you don't get poisoned very often, because on master level difficulty, which is what I'm looking at, you're not supposed to get hit. If you get hit, something went wrong. And diseases, you can easily cure diseases by just going to an altar, and yeah, so what else I don't see very useful. The Redguard, resist poison, once again not very useful, but adrenaline rush, once a day, 10 times stamina regeneration for 60 seconds, which, stamina isn't really that important for the master difficulty, because you're mostly looking at using a bow and arrow and sneaking, so stamina isn't really a problem. Orc, they have Berserker, which is once a day deal double weapon damage and take half damage for 60 seconds, which is very useful, but, eventually you're going to be one-shotting everyone, and again, you're not supposed to take any damage, so the benefits aren't always prevalent, and it's also an ability, which means you have to activate it and then you forget about it, and so on. Nord, they resist frost 50%, which is quite neat, because a lot of dragons have frost damage, and also magic frost damage is pretty brutal because it slows you down. And they also have Battlecry, which is once a day, causes targets to flee for 30 seconds, which, targets are supposed to be dead, not fleeing, so I don't know, it's not really my type of perk, or, a trait or whatever. Khajiit, I hope I pronounced that right. Claw attacks, which means that, the standard, normally you have fists if you don't have a weapon, but I think Khajiits just get claws, which is additional damage without actually having to equip, weapons or whatever. And they have an additional starting spell, which Eye of Night, which is a spell that lets you see better. But yes, if you get an additional starting spell, it's nice, but you can always go buy that spell later, so it's not really like an advantage or disadvantage. The next race is the Imperial. They have an interesting trade, which is Imperial Luck, which is find more gold coins, I think. That's what I've read, I'm not 100% sure. But money in this game is so prevalent and so easy to find and get your hands on. It's not really important to get even more, because eventually you're gonna have more gold than you can deal with. But I have a trait, Voice of the Empire, which is once a day calm nearby enemies for 60 seconds. Once again, enemies are supposed to be dead, not needing calming. High Elves, they start with 50 extra magicka, which is very nice for a magic character, but problem is that magic is not that great in this game, and according to the people that do the number crunching, magic is not the way to go. And they have a Highborn, which is 10 times magicka Highborn, I don't know what you call it, but they are Highborn, which means that once a day they have 10 times magicka regeneration, and they have an additional starting spell, Fury. Low level creatures attack each other, which, again, everyone's supposed to be dead, not attacking each other. And Dark Elves, and High Elves are incredibly ugly, so are Dark Elves, so that's another thing against them. Dark Elves, they resist fire 50%, which is also neat because, dragons. It's like the Frost for the Nord, it's very neat against dragons because, dragons are pretty strong, and if you can resist part of their attack, it's quite nice. And Ancestor Wrath, once a day, cloak self in 60 seconds. Not sure, it's not going to be useful for the build that I will suggest. but it might be, good if you're on the lower difficulties. Might be fun to use. And they also have an additional starting spell, which is Sparks. Lightning Sparks that deal 8 damage of shock damage to health and magicka per second. Actually, the shock, like if you have a magic build and you run into enemy mages that use Sparks, it's actually very frustrating because you run out of magicka so fast. Yeah, and it's hard to kill them. Then the next is Breton. Resist magic 25%, which is huge. Like, there's so many mages that you go up against, especially in some of the harder dungeons, that resisting that magic for 25% is pretty advantageous. Dragon Skin, once a day absorb 50% magicka for 6 seconds, which is again huge if you're, going up against some kind of creature that's amazing at magic, which happens often. That's very nice. But they also have additional starting spell, which is Conjure Familiar, which is not very useful again. It's Conjure Ally Familiar for 60 seconds. Last one is Algonian. Resist disease 50%. Again, it's not that important. Water breathing, that's pretty big. But I've never had a problem with drowning, because there's not much. I haven't finished the game yet, but I haven't seen a lot of water fighting or underneath water fighting, so yeah. His skin, that's pretty nice. Once a day, 10 times health regeneration. But the build that I would suggest is a Breton, because of the 25% magic resist and the dragon skin. And yeah. Oh, during this video you would have seen all the stats pop up next to the race. But those stats, it's so easy to gain the lower levels that those starting stats, like the additional levels in whatever destruction or pickpocket or whatever, isn't really that important because, it makes little difference. If not, it takes away because, the later levels are kind of hard to get, and if you start on a lower level, it's really easy to level it up and thus gain levels by yourself. So yeah, that's my guide. In conclusion, your Bretons is the way that I'm going to, the race that I will choose, and that's how I will play the game.